afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Nova 401k Associates webinar, Protecting Your Participants' Information. This will be presented today by Jason Worms. He is a team leader and consultant here at Nova. If you have any questions, please type them in the questions box, and Jason will answer them at the end of the presentation. A recording of today's presentation will also be made available on our Nova YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com, search for Nova 401k Associates, double click on our channel and click all videos. You'll see this video as well as several other webinars we have had in the past. Jason, we are ready to go.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking some time out of your Thursday afternoon to join us for what I hope will be an informative and hopefully preventative webinar talking about how to protect your participants' personal information. So as we get started here, here are the types of things that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about why we feel the need to provide this information to our plan sponsors and other interested parties. Talk about what type of data is at risk, how Nova helps keep that data secure, some tips and tricks for you to help keep data secure, and then we're going to go over some basic do's and don'ts of keeping your data secure overall. This is a 30-minute webinar, so we will move through these things relatively quickly. We do, like Andrea said, have time for audience questions at the end of the webinar. So if you do have questions, please put them in the chat box. Since we are saving questions to the end, it might be easier if when you submit a question, you put the slide number that, that your question relates to. The slide numbers are going to be displayed at the bottom right on each slide. And that'll make it easier to go back to the appropriate slide when we're addressing your question. So without further ado, let's get started. So in case you guys haven't heard, there's a lot of interest in trying to attack 401k plan assets by people that are out to do no good. And that's because, you know, as the famous bank robber said, that's where the money is, right? There are several $1 trillion with a T in 401k plan assets across the universe of 401k plans in the United States. And because of that, people that are out to do no good have taken notice, and they are scheming to get access to those monies. Most of the attacks take place at the record keeper level. So for those of you who don't know, record keepers are the companies that hold on to the plan assets. So that's your John Hancock, your Empower, your Voya, etc. of the world. And what happens is these bad actors will try and get personal information for a participant so that they can impersonate that participant, log in to that participant's account at the record keeper and request a distribution, okay? So what that starts with is a phish or a hack. So hopefully you guys have heard of a phishing email where someone sends you an email with either an attachment or a link or something else where they can try and access your credentials to your system. So whether that's your username and password or security question answers or anything like that, that is how they start their attack. Then once they have that piece of information, they will contact the record keeper. Since they have your username or one piece of information, they can request that your password be reset, which means that you have now been locked out of your account and the bad actor has gained access in your stead. And then once they get that new password, they can log into your account and they can request a loan or a distribution, okay? So that's the basic path of how these attacks are happening currently. It's also worth mentioning that these fraudsters and bad actors, typically when they request these distributions and loans, will request that they're paid via ACHs or wires instead of via check. And the reason why they do that is pretty simple when you think about it, is because ACHs and wires get the money out of the plan as fast as possible, right? They don't have to wait for the check to go in the mail, which means that they have access to the funds more quickly, and they can take the funds and move them to other bank accounts or spend them before the fraud is detected. Whereas with a check, if it's in the mail for a week or even a couple of days, it's more likely that the participant or the plan sponsor notices that something is up and is able to stop that check payment. Okay. So this information is a little bit dated, but I got another example for you. In November of 2016, Great West Financial, otherwise known as Empower, reported that they had 20 participant accounts process fraudulent withdrawals totaling over $1 million. Okay. These attacks have only increased in frequency and scale since then. And if you notice, it's only 20 accounts, but it's over $1 million in lost funds. So they're not going after your auto-enrolled participant or your lowest paid employees. They're going after your officers, your owners of the company, your CEOs, your CFOs, your head of HR or your head of engineering, the people with the money in their accounts. Those are the people that these folks are targeting, because that's what makes the risk that they take on to try and impersonate these accounts worth it for them. So again, phishing attacks, they go for login information for the participants. And it might be a multi-stage phishing attack. So they might try one thing in order to get a username for a participant. They may do a different attack to try and figure out what their security answers would be or what their password currently is. And so those are, so it's not always just a one-time effort that can be thwarted. It is a multiple-pronged, multiple time frame attack to get the information that they need to access these accounts. Also, the participant, you as the plan sponsor, can do everything right, but the participant's name or personally identifiable information can still be exposed via hacks in other industries, right? So, you know, when the credit reporting agency was hacked, everybody's social security number, name, address, birth date, all those things are out there for purchase on the internet. So it is not just a participant being careless that can get them in trouble. Sometimes unrelated hacks can expose their accounts. Now, one way that you can address that or potentially remove that threat is to do things like change your passwords, change your user ID, change your security answers, or do things like change your security answer to something that doesn't actually answer the question, right? Like what is your favorite color? And you say puppies is your answer, right? That's the hard thing for people to guess. Okay. So I mentioned personally identifiable information a couple of times already on this webinar, but I wanted to take a minute just to describe what personally identifiable information is. So personally identifiable information, which I'm going to refer to as PII because it's easier for me to say, is any non-public information about a person. So that's your social security number, that would be your date of birth, your employment history dates, so hire, termination, rehire, retirement, etc. Any compensation information about the person is considered PII. Obviously, logins and passwords would fall into that bucket as well. Similarly, PII can also apply to retirement plans or employers. So things like banking information, things like who are authorized signers on the account, contract numbers, et cetera, can be things that would be considered PII. So how does NOVA help keep PII secure? So we have several steps that we take in order to keep all of the information that you as a plan sponsor or a financial advisor provide to us safe from the people who want to steal it. We have a secure web portal. So if you haven't used plansponsorlink.com before, that is where NOVA stores a lot of your plan related information. We can send secure emails to you from that system. And you can send secure emails back to us. There's also a file transfer portal there where you can upload a file, whether that's a year-end census that we've just asked many of our clients for, or some other thing that has participant information on it. You can securely transmit it to us through there. As a backup to the plan sponsor link, we also have encryption software, so we can send just regular email in a secure fashion that encrypts the email and makes it very unlikely that anyone would be able to hack into it and access the contents of the email or of the attachments to the email. Nova also tries to be security conscious when we are adding new contacts to a plan. So if somebody calls us up and says, "Hi, my name is Joe, I am the new CFO for XYZ company, can you please add me to the plan?" We're like, "That's great, you know, welcome to your new job, I hope it works out great for you. We just need somebody who is already authorized to give us instruction from the plan to authorize you to be added as a contact." So we do that as a way to ensure that only people that should be getting plan level information actually get it. And also we have several layers of security access rights that we can afford to contacts for a plan. So if you have somebody who should be able to view our plan documents, for example, but shouldn't be able to authorize distributions, our security is not a one size fits all. We can customize the security access rights for people based on what they are authorized to do by the plan trustees. Nova has a Nova password policy. Essentially, it is every calendar quarter, all Nova team members are required to update their passwords to any website that houses participant information, whether that's internal or external. Again, one of the things that I mentioned on a previous slide about easy ways to help prevent fraudsters from getting access to your funds is to change your passwords frequently. So Nova does have a password policy about that. We also require cybersecurity specific training for all of our team members every calendar quarter. So whether that's current events, whether that's a deep dive on a particular security issue, we train our associates on how to keep data secure, and we reinforce that training every calendar quarter. It's not listed on the slide, but we are also users of where our IT group will send us the occasional fraudulent email just to test our skills. They send us an email that looks legit for various reasons, but it's actually a trap for us to see, you know, what team members, if any, will provide any information that they shouldn't, and then that allows us to target our training additionally based on those results. So switching gears, how can you keep your personally identifiable information for your plan and for your participants secure? First thing is you got to know what personally identifiable information, or PII, that you keep around, right? So things like distributions, loans. If you are using paper forms for those still, and you're keeping them in your office, for example, are they in a locked drawer or are they sitting loose on your desk, right? Because those forms are going to have social security number, name, likely date of birth, full address, a lot of the information that could be trouble if it got into the wrong hands. Another big one this time of year is census files and W-2 forms, right? Everybody's working on their W-2s right now to get that done. And then soon you'll be submitting census files to Nova so we can prepare your compliance testing. All of those forms and files are loaded with social security numbers, addresses, names, all that stuff that'll be very valuable to someone who's looking to access that information for nefarious purposes. Less so anymore, but still a risk, are participant statements. So most of these are delivered electronically these days, but if you do still have participants who receive their quarterly statement from their record keeper in the mail, that has their name, it has their address on it, it has their account balance, says who their record keeper is. All those things are hints that a person who's looking to do bad can use to try and access that account. If you work for a company, or if you are a person who is self-employed, Schedule K-1s, Schedule Cs, other tax documents, again, make sure that if you have them, they are locked up somewhere that's not just sitting out on your desk and easy for people to access. It's also worth mentioning that regular email is not a secure transmission method. Email does not get automatically encrypted when it is sent through cyberspace, and anyone can intercept that email, read the contents, open attachments, any of that kind of thing, if they needed to. Now, there are options to do secure email or to access a web portal or a secure file transfer site. There are alternatives to email. So just please remember that just regular plain old email is not a good way to send personally identifiable information, either within your company or to external people like Nova. So alternatives to email, we've got the census upload function on Plan Sponsor Link. Is how we ask our clients to submit the annual census data to us. That is the best way to do it. It's a secure website. Everyone has to have a user ID and a password to access it. And even once they gain access, they're only able to see things that their security rights allow them to see. So even if somebody's access were to be compromised, there are things in place that could limit how much a potential fraudster would be able to see and access. It's worth mentioning that if you were to do a password protection to your attachments in an email, like if you had a census file and for some reason you can't get it to upload on Plan Sponsor Link and you wanted to send it to Nova, you can password protect that file. However, there are very easily available pieces of software out on the internet that can break the encryption of a password protected file in less than 5 seconds, okay? So that is, you know, it's better than nothing, but it's a pretty inadequate defense if somebody is really interested in what you have in that attachment. So while that is an option, we would definitely prefer that you use the upload function or the secure file transfer function on the Plan Sponsor Link website. Another way to keep information from falling into the wrong hands is limit the number of people that are copied on emails that include personally identifiable information. If you do have to email PII out, whether within your company or without, please, please, please limit the number of people that have access to that email to only the people that need that information in order to move forward, okay? As when it comes to accessing any websites or any systems that have access to PII, use complex passwords, okay? So, you know, password 1234 is probably not gonna get the job done in most cases, okay? Use characters, use long passwords, use passwords that can be words or phrases, but you want to also change them frequently. I know that makes it a pain to try and remember them. Also, you shouldn't be writing down your passwords in a notebook or a file on your computer. And there's a lot of commercially available password manager services out there that could be a solution for you if the price point is right for you. You can also consider encryption software. Again, Nova subscribes to an encryption service where we can send out encrypted email that would include PII. We do that kind of as a last resort if the person doesn't have access to, say, Plan Sponsor Link in order to do a secure file exchange, for example. We can send a secure email. A nice feature that our particular secure email vendor does is it will scan our outgoing emails that are not encrypted for PII, and if it comes across any of them, it will automatically encrypt the email for us, giving us a way to correct the oopsies that we sometimes do where we hit send instead of sending the encrypted way. Okay, so moving on to just some do's and don'ts of data security. So Excel is a program that a lot of us use for a lot of different things. Most importantly for this particular discussion is census files are submitted to Nova on Excel, right? Hiding columns or tabs in an Excel file does not secure the data, okay? Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it is in any way secured. It's just as easy to unhide those columns or those tabs or those rows to to show the data. If you use the mask SSN format for cell format in Excel, that also does not secure your data. Excel still has the full 9-digit social security number on the file. It's just showing us something different. So again, that's a very simple thing for someone once they gain access to your file to break through to get to the full data. If you email a password protected file, again, we talked about how this is not the best way of doing it, but there are times where you just don't have any other option. And so you have to send a password protected file. Do not send the password in another email. If your recipient's email is compromised, sending them a secure file on one email and the password to it on a separate email does not keep the contents of your email safe, okay? So it is better to call the person with the password to the file after you've sent the email, okay? That way, even if their email is compromised, even if the email is intercepted in transmission, the person isn't going to be able to access the file. Okay. Do not email your username or password for any secure website to anyone. Okay. Hand in hand with this is do not share logins. If you have multiple people that need to access a system or a website, set up individual users for them where they have individual usernames and individual passwords. Okay. Having multiple people access to the same login generally means there's more instances of that login being written down somewhere or chances of it falling into the wrong hands. And with a shared login, if one person who's up to no good gets in there, they can either restrict everybody else's access to that site or really cause a lot of damage. Another one that's kind of hopefully has been drilled into everybody's head by now, but please be cautious when you're opening email attachments that you do not recognize, expect, or that have an unusual file type. Okay, so if you've got a .dat, a .exe, for example, those file types, generally speaking, are bad news. Okay, unless you are expecting an email of that file type from the person that you receive it from, it is probably a good idea to delete that email entirely and probably even report it to your IT group. The same thing goes for hyperlinks, whether they're to documents or websites. Make sure that you know the person who sent you the email, that you trust the source, that you've hovered over the link to make sure that where it's sending you is where you think you're going, because all of those things can be ways for people to gain access to your systems if you are not careful. Consider archiving email accounts at your company. So at Nova, we have many of our team members have a 90-day email archive policy, which means that our emails are stored on our local versions of Outlook for 90 days. And after that, they were removed from Outlook and stored in an archive. What that does for us is if one of our email accounts is compromised, the person who gains access to that account has a very limited amount of data that they control through looking for personally identifiable information or other things that would further their agenda, okay? Whereas if you have an email system that keeps every email that you've ever sent or received, then that person who gains access to that email account could have access to a trove of information, whether it's participant information, whether it's plan information, specific to your company information. It's a whole lot of info that they would not otherwise have access to. I talked about this one on the previous slide about sharing logins and passwords among multiple people. Everyone should have their own access for each secure spot that they need to get access to. Now, before I move on to the questions part, I did want to tell a little bit more of a recent story about data security. So some of you may have heard about this one already, but Abbott Labs has been in the news lately because a participant in that plan had their account compromised and had several $50,000 distributions processed from that account without the participant's knowledge. The participant has sued everybody from her employer Abbott Labs to the record keeper on the plan to the third-party administrator because of what they claim were breaches in processes and failure to protect this participant's information. And what that's done is it's caused a lot of companies in this industry to really look at their policies and procedures and how they protect participant information. Who can authorize distribution forms, how frequently they can do it, how easy it is for someone to request a distribution or a loan online. And so the result of that is many of the record keepers, for example, especially the larger ones, have started to institute some pattern recognition because human beings are creatures of habit. We will often access our 401k accounts at the same time or at the same day. Log in once a quarter to get your participant statement or something like that. So they can actually tell when you log in a time that is outside of the norms, and they can put an additional security in. So they can ask you an additional security question. They can make you receive a phone call with a security code before you can access your funds or access your account. So the record keepers are getting very smart about that. Third-party administrators like Nova, for example, have a lot of security measures in place to ensure that the signature on the distribution forms is a valid one, to make sure that on large balance or repeating distributions that we contact the person who's requesting the distribution to ensure that it's the distribution that they asked for, things like that. So the industry is adapting and evolving to take on the threats of cybersecurity, and we will continue to do so as more and more pieces of technology become available and more best practices are instituted across the industry. So with that, I think we have some time left for questions. Andrea, have any questions been submitted?
I did receive a couple questions just about the PDF. If you would like a copy of today's PDF presentation, go ahead and send an email to webinars@nova401k.com, and we'll be happy to get that over to you. I know I reached out to a couple of you directly, so I already have it, but I will be sending the PDF copy to the email that you registered with. So if I have spoken with you or messaged with you directly, you don't need to email the webinars@nova401k.com, but if you would like a PDF copy, go ahead and send an email to us, and we'll be happy to get that over to you. The only other question we had is just, will you be going over how to take care of year-end compliance testing and Form 5500?
You mean as far as the output? So Nova, by default, will share your year-end compliance testing with you through our Plan Sponsor Link web portal. So we will not email the compliance testing report to you. We will make the report available to you on the Plan Sponsor Link portal. We do that because that report is full of PII, compensation information, participant names, birth dates in some instances, contribution rates, account balances on the top heavy tests, things like that. The Form 5500, on the other hand, has no personally identifiable information. The Form 5500 is actually public information. When you sign the Form 5500 and file it with the EFAS2 system, that information gets posted on a public website that anybody can access. So there is nothing that is PII that needs to be secured on the Form 5500. But the compliance testing is kept behind the secure website of Plan Sponsor Link.
And also, just to build on that, if anyone is wondering, how do I log into Plan Sponsor Link and complete your year-end data collection request? We do have a recording available on our YouTube channel that will walk you through exactly how to complete this year-end data collection project. It's called Submitting Your Year-End Data. If you just go to youtube.com, search Nova 401k Associates, and then double click on our channel and then click all videos, and you will see that video that we just posted recently. So, but if you do have any questions, please of course reach out to your Nova account manager as you're working on completing that request.
Yep. And if you're more of a live webinar person, I believe we have the next one of those webinars scheduled for next week, if I remember right.
We do. So yes, so the next live securely submitting your census data will be on Thursday, January 21st at 2 o'clock Central Standard Time. Again, if you go to our Nova website, www.nova401k.com, we do have a link to our webinars page where we have a link that you can register for that webinar, as well as many other webinars that we have scheduled for 2021. Jason, did you have any closing comments?
No, thank you everyone for your time and attention. I hope we were able to share some information that'll help you keep your participants' data more secure.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a great day.